Well, hey everyone, what's up? It's gift buying season now, so I thought I'd do a little video called the Reformed Theology Starter Pack. This would be the most essential Reformed books and items that you could possibly put together in one box. I think you could get all of these items into one box, and so I'm going to limit myself to 10 choices here. But you know, in the Reformed world, we sometimes have this little joke when we ask if somebody is TR, and TR stands for truly Reformed. So if you're at like a Presbyterian meeting and maybe there's a new guy, you might elbow somebody and say, hey, is this guy really TR? And that means, is he truly Reformed? Is he truly in with the essential concepts and doctrines of Reformed theology? Or is he a pretender? Is he an evangelifish who slipped into the wrong meeting? Is he a quasi-dispensationalist who's going to come out of the closet as a Tim LaHaye fan? Who is this guy? Is he TR? So in this video, we're going to look at these books and study items that a TR person would already possess. And so if you're thinking about buying some gifts for somebody perhaps this time of year, these would be the items that you'd want to make sure that somebody has. So for instance, if you're new to Reformed theology and you want to know what everyone else is reading, what everyone else is already studying, if you want to get into the Reformed in-club cool group, whatever, these would be the items that we're going to put on that list. Now, before we get to that, and we're going to show that list here in just a moment, I do want to remind you, my new book, Worshiptainment, is up and it is selling in every format. We have it available in paperback, we have it available in Kindle, we have it available in hardback, and we have it available in Audible. So if you're the kind of person that says to yourself, well, I really want to read that book, but to be honest, I'd probably rather listen to it while I'm jogging or working in the kitchen or out in the yard, go grab the Audible version. I think you're really going to like that. I got a professional narrator to do that. It's a really good edition. So you can get it in paperback or you can get it in Audible, whatever you want. Now, let's jump to that list, shall we? So we've got a box. We've got an empty box. And what are we going to put in it? We're going to put in the Reformed Theology Starter Pack items. So let's start off with this. You've got to have this. You've got to have a Bible, right? So any essential box of Reformed theology items would contain at least a Bible. And what Bible would you get? Well, what translation? Well, let's set aside translation for a moment and start off talking about which edition of the Bible. And I'm going to suggest an excellent Reformed Study Bible. Now, there's a bunch of good study Bibles on the market, several of which I recommend. I love the ESV Study Bible, for instance, and I use it all the time. And while it is Reformed-ish, this one here is TR. This one here is truly Reformed. This is the Reformation Study Bible done by Ligonier Ministries. Of course, R.C. Sproul, may his soul rest in peace with glory in Christ in heaven. He's no longer here, but man, he left us a treasury of helpful items for study and for devotion. And here, his Reformation Study Bible is one of the best. In fact, I consult it almost every single sermon that I do. I at least look at the notes to see what the interpretation says. I found that this study Bible is stocked full of charts and helpful things and items and commentary and background information, all kinds of stuff that I actually practically use on the daily and the weekly as a Reformed pastor myself. So you've got to have a Reformed Study Bible in the box, and the Reformation Study Bible for me is going to be it. Secondly, there's no getting around it. You've got to have the Westminster Confession of Faith, and you have to be studying it regularly. If you're TR, if you're truly Reformed, then that means you're confessional. You're not a squishy evangelical whose doctrine comes up with, whatever you feel at the time or some popular books that you're going to get at Walmart. You're going to be the kind of person whose theology is forged by the ancient creeds and the solid Reformation confessions. And so for us who are TR, truly Reformed, it's the Westminster Confession of Faith. Now, speaking of that, there's a bunch of editions available for you online, but this one right here is the best. Trust me, it's the best. It's hardback, it's sewn, great paper, all the footnotes, readable. It's got the Westminster Confession, the larger catechism, the shorter catechism, introduction. It's fantastic. And again, hardback, compact, sewn edition, great paper. You cannot improve on this one. I will post a link in the description of this video so that you make sure you get yourself the right Westminster Confession of Faith. Moving on, let's talk about a little book here that not a lot of people know about. Now, this is called The Sum of Saving Knowledge. And the reason I'm including this is because this was a Reformed standard for years and years and decades and centuries. This is a little devotional book that used to be published with the Westminster Confession of Faith, but sadly it no longer is. In fact, almost every printed edition of the Westminster Confession of Faith that you used to get had an edition of the Sum of Saving Knowledge in it. Basically, there's two Scottish Covenanter Reformed theologians back in the day who wrote up this short, sweet, beautiful, pious, devotional summary of what the Christian faith is in a little bit longer form, a little bit more of a writing style form, not so much just the terse confessional language, but explaining it to the average person. And so people who used to be Reformed back in the days, they always had the Sum of Saving Knowledge. It is truly a Christian classic. And by the way, this one, along with the next one I'm going to mention right here, which is a Psalter, you have to have a Psalter. I can get you a deal on both of these two books because they're printed by Crown and Covenant Publications right here in Pittsburgh, and they're a partner with my channel, so we can get you 15% off of either of these. Put in the code Everhard15 in your checkout, and you can get the previous one and this one. You have to have a Psalter, okay, if you're truly Reformed. I understand that not everybody's church, does music the same way. Some of you have a rock band. Some of you have a little praise team. Some of you have a choir. But if you're truly Reformed, you sing the Psalms. You do, and worship, because psalm singing is just part of the real Reformed tradition. I think it's sad that we jettisoned the Psalms some time ago in a lot of churches, but there's also a movement of recovery, and I'm trying to lead that way in the movement of recovery of the singing of the Psalms here on this channel. And this is the actual Psalter that we use. I was going to reach over and grab it, but it's not on my desk. Oh, it's behind me right there, right there. This is the one we use. It's a fantastic Psalter. It's got all 150 psalms with some, actually multiple versions of some, and a lot of the tunes you already know because they're to the classic tunes of the Christian faith. So you've got to get yourself a Psalter. Even if your church doesn't have one, you need one for your personal devotion and probably your family worship as well. Let's move on next. A starter pack of Reformed books would have to have Louis Berkhof's Systematic Theology. Now, I have to admit, I agonized over this choice a little bit because there's other good ones available. Of course, I love John Frame. He was my professor for some time, but he has just a few too many quirks and nuances. You have to have a little bit more reading background in Reformed theology before you can fully imbibe with Frame, because sometimes he says things that are not confessional, and he admits that. He's very honest about what he believes. He'll often cite, even in the footnotes, that he's moving away from the confessions at a certain point. But Louis Berkhof is your standard one-volume Reformed systematic. The other one I really thought about was putting Beeke's 4-volume work in, because it's awesome. It's brand new, and it's truly Reformed. It is TR to the base. But this is a starter pack, and Beeke is a little bit long. It's 4 volumes. In a starter pack, you start off with the foundations and the fundamentals. So I put in Louis Berkhof's Reformed Systematic Theology. This is the expanded edition done by Banner of Truth. They're an awesome publisher as well. So go out and get this one. It was just recently republished, newly reset. It's a wonderful book, classic in Reformed theology, and he always sets it straight for what the Reformed tradition truly believes on any particular given issue. Now, next, we've also got to have some classic theology in our starter pack, and that's going to lead me to John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion. I've done several videos on John Calvin on this particular channel, so I don't necessarily need to either attack him or sing his praises here. All I need to do is just tell you that if you're truly Reformed, you do read John Calvin. He's the standard theologian for 500 plus years, and again, you don't have to agree with him on everything. You don't have to agree with everything he did. But if you're ignorant of the Institutes of the Christian Religion and you've never read it, you've never even touched it, you don't even know how to look something up in the Institutes, it'd be hard to say that you're truly Reformed. So you've got to get this one on your shelf, and you do have to get into it at some point. I have posted previously a reading guide for Calvin's Institutes, and maybe if I remember, I'll post that in the description of this video as well. Next, you got to have a hymnal. And which hymnal are you going to get? You're going to get the best one ever made, the Red Trinity Hymnal, which is a joint publication between the PCA, that's my denomination, and the OPC in their Great Commission publications. I believe it is. Got mine right here. To my right, we sing from this every week here at Gospel Fellowship PCA. We love this hymnal. Now, I'm assuming that you do sing hymns, right? Some of my viewers don't. Your RPCNA or your exclusive psalmody, that's fine. I already gave you a recommendation. But for those who do sing hymns, this is probably the best hymnal on the market. I love it. And if you don't have one for your home, for your shelf, for your family devotions or in church, you got to put this in the Reformed Theology Starter Pack. Every hymn has been fully vetted by very wise minds that are deeply inclined to Reformed theology, so you can trust the stuff that's put into the Trinity Red. Next, we got to get some Sproul in our starter pack, right? Because how could you be TR if you didn't read yourself some R.C. Sproul? And in this case, I'm going to recommend his book, What is Reformed Theology? Now, I thought about this one, and I thought about putting in the holiness of God, which definitely would fit. Again, we're trying to get everything in one box. But, I mean, the title is What is Reformed Theology? And this book helped me so much. When I was a broad, generic, vanilla evangelical, and I was coming into the Reformed faith, there was one book that I went back to again and again and again. I noted in the margins, I highlighted everything. I taught this book in several different classes. And here it is, What is Reformed Theology? One of the classics. This will definitely introduce you to our nuances. And if you want to be TR, you got to read this particular book. Next, we've got to get a devotional in our book, our box of books, right? And so what are we going to pick? Well, we're going to pick the best one there is, The Valley of Vision. Now, some of you chastised me in my 100 top books list because I put this one pretty low. And I don't mean low as in close to 1. It was closer to 100. I think it was number 70 something or 80 something. And you're like, how could you put that high in the ranking numbers? Well, okay, but this is a classic. The Valley of Vision contains excellent, rather anonymous prayers from the Reformed and the Puritan tradition. Now, it does mention who the prayers come from in the back of the book, but it doesn't always cite it at the bottom of the page. And I think that's probably good. They come across as anonymous prayers, but they're so beautifully structured. They're poetic. They are pious. They are deep. They are profound. And you can use these either in your personal life for your prayer in the morning, or you can read one at the table devotion with your family, or you can use them on mission trips or with the youth group or whatever you want to do. But the Valley of Vision is probably the classic TR devotional. So there's that. Now, finally, okay, a little bit of self-promotion, and I am sorry about that. This is going to come off as self-promotional, and indeed it is. I've already repented. I'm sorry. But I do want to mention, I've got 4 books on some of the most important topics to Reformed theology. My new book, Worshiptainment, goes through the regulative principle of worship and why we do what we do when we worship the Lord on the Lord's Day. My book, Hold Fast the Faith, is exactly what the subtitle says, a devotional commentary on the Westminster Confession of Faith. So if you want to understand the Westminster Standards, go get Hold Fast the Faith. My blue book, Souls, How Jesus Saves Sinners. That's a simple, easy to read introduction to the gospel itself. If you're going to be TR, you got to know the gospel in its sweetness, its quintessence, its beauty, its simplicity. And that's what I tried to do in the book Souls, How Jesus Saves Sinners. Give it to college students, give it to new members, give it to new converts, read it again if you haven't read it already. And then finally, there's my A Theology of Joy, which takes you into one of the classic minds of one of the great Reformed theologians, Jonathan Edwards, especially his theology of joy and happiness. Again, most of these books, you can get them in paperback, you can get them in Audible, you can get them in Kindle form. I would love it and be very honored if you would get one of my books for one of your friends or loved ones this time of year. Okay, well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you so much for checking into this channel. Again, Worshiptainment is out in Audible, paperback, Kindle. Thanks so much for checking in. Love you all lots. Talk to you next time.